Hello everyone, Aaron Spears here, Young Adult Librarian at the Westlake Porter Public Library. This is the digital version of our Summer Teen Writers Workshop fourth meetup. We have been doing them on Zoom on Thursdays throughout June and July, focusing on different aspects of short story creation. This particular one is going to be looking at building worlds, creating moods, and exploring settings. So this is the YouTube version of the Zoom program that we just did a day or so ago. So what we're going to do with this is a guided writer's prompt video where there's going to be writing prompts on screen along with timers to guide you through the building worlds, creating moods, and exploring your settings. So let's jump right in with this edition of the Summer Teen Writers Workshop. The format we do is we have a theme each week. In this particular case, it's building worlds. And it's really just a series of timed writing prompts with built-in timers. So you click play on this video, you don't have to pause it, just go with the flow, and the writing prompts will pop up with timers, and we will move on from there. There's also, if you're joining us on Zoom, we always build in the last like 15 minutes or so is just free time to write, explore what you just maybe discovered through these writing prompts, or just put all that aside and work on something that you were already working on, or start brainstorming something new. That obviously that's not included in the YouTube videos here that you're watching, but obviously when the video's done, please keep writing. The last thing we do each week is, or each video also, is we throw in a curveball to incorporate into the story you've been working on. So that'll be also included in this video. So the writing prompts for today are building worlds, creating mood, and exploring your setting. And these are actually structured so that we are going to be building on top of, not just building worlds, but we're going to be building on top of every prompt that we write. So these prompts all build to a whole by the end of the session. So let's jump into the first one. That is building worlds. We're going to work from the micro to the macro. So we're going to work from like the smaller, more intimate area to the larger, greater world overall. So we're going to start with a neighborhood or a home setting. Going to zoom out to the city, then zoom all the way out to the world that your characters are going to be inhabiting, that your story is set in. So prompt number one is, we're going to do a couple minutes on this one. This is the neighborhood. Your character lives somewhere. And I mean, that could be a tiny little like 200 square foot apartment in New York City or Chicago, or it could be, let's say, like a countryside manor in 1800s Japan. There's going to be a neighborhood to that. There's going to be a place that they're living in, and then there's going to be a neighborhood around that. So take a couple minutes here and start writing out or listing out or brainstorming out the neighborhood that your character lives in. What do they see when they walk out the door or down the street? Do they love where they live, or are they just counting down the days till they can move, escape, leave, whatever their ability to leave may depend on how old they are, what their age is, what the society is around them. Why is your character currently living where they are as well? All right, so let's zoom out one layer from that. Now we're going to look at the city. That neighborhood that we were just exploring is placed somewhere. It's placed inside a city. It exists in a city. It could be also not necessarily a city. Maybe it's a town. Maybe it's a village. The general idea is we're saying city is just like the bigger area around the neighborhood, even if it isn't like what we would say like an urban city environment. So what does the city look like? Is it maybe farmland? Is it just land? Maybe it is a really densely populated urban environment. So how populated is it? Are there any specific geographic features? Is it really mountainous? Is it totally flatlands? Is it got a river, a lake? Is it near the ocean? Is it a coastline? Is it the edge of a continent? What does that environment look like? If it is a densely populated urban environment with lots of buildings, what kind of architecture is it? If it's a realistic modern day setting, which type of architecture is it? There's different kind of architecture in Thailand than there is in London. If it's future, if it's past, you get the idea. Science fiction, maybe you're going to invent a whole new type of architecture. Is it a nice place to live? Is it not a nice place to live? What does your character think of the other neighborhoods that are around it? Because now that we're zoomed out to the city level, you can see your character's neighborhood, but there's also other neighborhoods around. And what are the people like that are here? All right, the last biggest zoom out, a lot of bullet points to consider here is the world. That neighborhood, the city, they both exist in something much larger, and that is the world. So, what kind of world are we looking at here? Is it one that readers are familiar with? Or is it like nothing that's ever been seen before? In either case, you're still going to have to be describing to your readers what the world is. You can maybe use shortcuts if it's familiar, but if you're building something completely from scratch in a fantasy world, you're gonna have to be able to get familiar with it to describe it to people. In that way, in that regards, What kinds of people, animals, buildings are there out here in the world? Is there a transportation system for people to move around within this world? Is there a power structure within the world? Meaning, is there a government? Is there royalty? Like the way the Hunger Games has the capital that, is kind of the overarching authority within that particular world. That sort of thing. Was your character born into this world, or did they find it by chance? I always like thinking of some basic functionality things too, like food. What maybe is the most popular fast food, or what is a popular restaurant, or what is the type of food that is available within this world? Does that even exist? Is food just pill form or whatever? And what are the people like in other countries other than the one that your character grew up in and is currently placed in? So what are the different people like that aren't the people from the neighborhood that your character is in? All right, so prompt number 4. This is called Map It. This came up in a writers group I'm part of about a year and a half or so ago, and I'd never really tried this before. And it's basically what the name implies. We're going to just sketch out some maps of what we just were brainstorming: the neighborhood, the city, and the world. I will admit I am not a great artist by any means. I wouldn't even say I'm a competent artist. I can doodle though. So if you can draw, go nuts. If you can't, like me, then doodles and labels are just fine. What you want to do is you want to kind of discover and orient yourself within the world that your characters inhabit. And this can give you insight into certain scenes. Like the story I was working on when I first tried this Map It idea was two best friends who live on opposite ends of the neighborhood. And as I mapped it out, I realized, oh, they got like a couple of blocks to walk to get to meet each other or to get together at all. So that made me realize, oh, I could have a scene there where like
one of the friends is walking solo to the other friend's house, or if they're walking back, and forth or whatever. So it didn't occur to me that there are these scenes I could have until I started mapping it out. So this is going to help orient you as you start plotting out more and more of your story as to like, oh wait, where's that located at? Where's this located at? You'll have some maps. Now we're not going to spend a ton of time here. Just kind of do some quick sketches and start mapping out. First up is the neighborhood. Next up for mapping is going to be the city level. So start kind of sketching out the city level. And again, city just in the broader sense of outside of the neighborhood. It doesn't necessarily have to be a densely populated urban city. It could just be land. Geographically, if it's mountainous, mark out that stuff. And last is the world. Obviously, that's a big thing to draw an entire world. We're not, don't have to go too nuts with it just yet, but just take a moment or two here and try to sketch out where the neighborhood and the city exist within the greater world of the story. All right, we are on to creating mood. So what we've done so far is we worked our way out from the small to the large, and that has given us hopefully a good long list of potential locations within a larger setting. And now it's time to kind of explore some of those via mood. We're going to kind of combine these all together. So for right now, we're going to set aside all of the world building and the mapping, and we're going to look at specifically just mood, because mood, a lot of times when you think of it, we think of it as applying to what the character's mood is in your story right now. But mood can also apply to your setting. It can actually apply to nearly everything that's going on in your fictional world. Mood creates the feeling of your story. It can also work to enhance your setting. So whatever you want your readers to be feeling, you're obviously going to have to create with words. And we're going to apply mood specifically to the settings that we've got in the building worlds prompts we just did. But for right now, we want to kind of hone in and explore the power of mood for just a few minutes here. So there's a lot of different moods, obviously, we can do. But what we want to take a look at, we're going to do 4 moods right now. And this isn't really necessarily writing out paragraphs. This could just be words, brainstorming, maybe a sentence or two. Do it in list form if you want. Think about the mood number 1 here we've got is creepy. Think about this one and all of them kind of in reference to the 5 senses, because human beings will be reading your story and we respond to the world around us through the different senses. So, what would it take visually for sight for something to be creepy? What sound would be creepy? What smell would be creepy? What touch would be creepy? What taste could be creepy? So kind of start listing this out, and we're generating a lot of words that we're going to later use to do descriptions. So get a lot of descriptive words here about what creepy can be to create a creepy mood in your story. All right, next up, we're going to go opposite spectrum from creepy to a certain extent and joyful. So, start brainstorming out your words, your lists, your sentences, and also your senses. What would create a joyful mood? All right, now we're going to do another one. This is mysterious. So again, using the words list, start brainstorming your senses. What visually would be mysterious? What sounds could be mysterious? All within the world that your story is going to operate in. All right, mood number 4 is your pick. Whatever maybe mood or atmosphere, I would sometimes refer to it as a vibe that you have within any of the settings you're exploring. Pick a mood and kind of flesh that out. Start brainstorming some words, some lists of whatever mood you want to explore. All right, now with creating mood, we're going to pair this up with some of the building worlds. So we're going to, all the stuff you just did, keep that next to you. Now we're going to bring back in the building worlds and the map it exercises from the beginning. And we're going to do a combination of setting and mood to help create a world that is really rich in detail for the reader. So combination number one, pick any one of those settings, the neighborhood, the city, the world, or maybe it's a specific location within that neighborhood. Maybe something really piqued your interest when you were exploring the neighborhood of the neighbor's house, like right next door to your main character. Or maybe it's a certain business within the city that you're like, ooh, my character would really go for that. That's why they live here, because this particular business or place or space, maybe it's the local library, who knows, really piques the character's interest. So take a specific location, something from one of those settings, and then partner that up with one of the moods that we were just exploring. Because of those four moods, we've got a long list of descriptions and things that we've brainstormed that would help create that mood. So we're going to put those two together for a couple of paragraphs here. And so you're going to combine that setting or specific location with one of those moods and really get into the description. Don't worry about dialogue or characters, just describe that location with that mood to your reader. All right, for combination number two, pick a different setting or a particularly a different location and pick a different mood, one of the other ones that you haven't used yet, and put them together in the same way. So now we're gonna have two combinations at the end of this prompt of different settings and different moods. All right, now it is time to explore your setting. So what we've done so far is we've built some worlds, we've created some moods. Now we're going to add in one final element. Like I said at the beginning, we're combining all of this stuff together. In exploring your setting, we want to wander through the combinations you just put together. So keep those two combinations you just wrote about, those paragraphs you just created, and now we're going to send a character into that situation and see what happens. So for exploring the setting number one, write from a character point of view, visiting one of those two settings for the very first time. So combination number one that you did of a particular setting or a particular place and the mood, or combination number two, and introduce a character into that, exploring it for the first time, and take the reader through the character's kind of mental state, their thought process as they're visiting that environment for the first time. And exploring the setting number two, write from a character point of view about their favorite place in one of those settings. One way you could do this is to try writing this one as a journal entry, maybe written by the character after they visited the place, like why it's their favorite. Have the character be describing like the mood and the atmosphere and all of that. So take another one of those combinations, or if you want to try something different that you've already been working on too as well, get that character point of view, their favorite place, why it's their favorite place, when it became their favorite place, and potentially, if you want to, try writing out as like a journal entry so you can really get into the voice of that character. All right, this is the part where we introduce the curveball to it. And I was thinking about building worlds and creating moods. And when I was putting this slideshow together, there was a lot of news recently about mudslides and flooding, specifically over in Europe and in Germany. That's just really tragic and awful right now. And I thought, well, what if one of the locations you've created in your fictional world is destroyed by some sort of a disaster? And it could be natural, or maybe it could be man-made within your story. How do your characters respond to that? We've done a lot of work on neighborhoods, on cities, on worlds, and creating moods within these specific locations. What happens if one of those is destroyed?
All right, folks, that's what we've got for the Summer Teen Writers Workshop. This was our fourth and final installment. Please continue writing, obviously. And if you're looking forward to the fall, we're going to do our Fall Teen Writers Workshop in September and October, which is going to be the same kind of structure where we meet 4 different times every other Thursday starting in the second week of September. And that's actually going to be focused specifically on novel writing. So National Novel Writing Month, NaNoWriMo, is in November. So what we do in September and in October during the Fall Teen Writers Workshop is get all of the prep work done, because you can't just start, well, I mean, you could if you wanted to, I guess. You can't just start really November 1st, like, I'm going to write a novel, page 1, word 1 right there. There's a lot of work that goes into getting that ready to go to keep you going throughout the month of November. So please come back and join us in the Fall Teen Writers Workshop kicking off in September. Until then, keep writing and enjoy the rest of your summer.